once again to DWP 2022 season. Today my topic is Modernize, Don't Westernize Africa as the basis and the main principle for Brand Afrika. So in the last episodes, we looked at how Africa, as the wealthiest continent, has failed to leverage all this advantage. And we have ended up with the weakest brand in the world. And yet Africa is the frontier of human development. So today, as we go into Modernize, Don't Westernize Africa, I'm looking for ways of saying, well, if Africa is the original frontier of human development, it should be an initial part of that brand and how we rebuild the brand. But today, the brand is further damaged by the fact that we are beggars. Donors over the last 5, 6, 7 decades have ensured that dependence increases, poverty reduction is their mantra, and humanitarian aid. So continuing not to help Africans create their own wealth, not teaching Africans how to fish for themselves, but to continue to feed dependency. So this dependency syndrome has become a culture that we have had to deal with, and now it's beginning to recede, but it's now all the way down to community level in Africa. You see donors and NGOs running around. The communities waiting for government, donors, the church to do something. The church has become one of the biggest businesses in Africa, So people go to church to buy miracles because, that's how dependent we've become. Some even convert factories into churches, then start praying for jobs in the churches. So there's gross misunderstanding of what life is about. Rebuilding Brand Afrika goes back to the originality of Africans and their understanding of humanity and life. This has to be the basis of rebuilding this brand. Life itself is a miracle. Life itself is the miracle. And we are going to deal with this issue in future sessions. We therefore, today, are going to have to go into further elements of Brand Afrika so that we can continue to upgrade Brand Afrika, because this automatically accelerates the pace of economic growth. The more credible Brand Afrika becomes, it means we Africans can sell more for higher prices to the rest of the world, be it healthier foods, tastier foods, fashion, consumer goods, herbals and pharmaceuticals, whatever it is. So in the last session, I did try to place emphasis in understanding the difference between self-criticism and self-depreciation, so that we continue to uphold the brand and criticize ourselves at individual level, but the brand always stays strong. So when you come back after this short break, I will be going into the facts around how do we modernize and not westernize Africa as the driving principle for Brand Afrika. See you shortly. Thank you. So my name is Mandi Rukuni. I authored this book, Being African, which I'm recommending to you. You stand a chance of winning a copy of this book in the DWP competitions. But I wrote this book primarily because we Africans often confuse westernization with modernization. So this book goes through what it takes for us to modernize Africa using our heritage rather than westernizing it. So Hunu, Botu, Ubuntu, Udugu is what this book is about. I recommend it to you highly. And those who want the practical side of how to succeed using heritage values, you can go to the small handbook of African Pathways to Success. Look forward to you participating in the competition. Thank you.
Stand a chance to win a copy of the book Being African or the booklet African Pathways to Success by subscribing to our YouTube channel Dialogue with Prof Mandi Rukuni and leaving a comment on one of our recent videos. You can also like our Facebook page and comment on a recent post. If you're on Instagram, follow the profile Prof Mandi Rukuni and leave a comment on a recent post as well. A random participant will be chosen at the end of the month and will be contacted and given the book.
Here we go. In today's episode, I'll start with the facts as before. Facts matter. And the first fact that I want to go through is that in Africa, we largely confuse modernization with westernization. So there is this kind of copy and paste approach almost in every sector: education, politics and governance, religion, science, name it. We just copy and paste. And as you know, the copy is never as good as the original, and it fades over time. So we send our children abroad to get a good education. But guess what? Because of that colonial trauma, they spend more time not mastering the techniques and processes of social and economic transformation, but rather spend more time, copying useless things, copying table manners. You don't hold your cup tea like this, your teacup is to be held like that, or wine glass. No, forget the table manners. You don't copy the culture. You copy the technology and come home and develop. So 6 decades after independence from the colonial masters, Africans are now figuring out that there is no universal truth on anything in life. The truth is something that is transitory, is temporary, sometimes even elusive. What's true today, in a few years' time, won't be the truth because the situation changes. So it's more important to appreciate life for what it is. Life will never be static, so that you can get away with permanent truths. So that's Africans have to stop confusing modernization with westernization. There'll be plenty of examples we can go through in future, but that's first fact. Second fact I'd like to focus on is that people of African origin and those who have gone into diaspora across the world have given so much to global society. In fact, world history should be rewritten around how Africans populated the world. All aspects of human endeavor started in Africa, whether it's the family, the heart, the little boat, the fishing line. Everything you see today as super duper buildings all started in Africa as an idea, then expanded worldwide, modernizing what started in Africa. But Africa's contribution to global society, once again, is something that deserves its own session, and we will do that in the next session. But just to give you a taste of what's coming, what I mean by this, just imagine, if it wasn't for the African drum, there wouldn't be MTV today. We're going to cover other examples like that. Many important aspects of history which should be used to strengthen and rebuild Brand Afrika. Fact number 3 is that the family system that Africa developed and the community systems that were developed in Africa over time are some of the best systems I've seen anywhere in the world when it comes to dealing with social issues and economic development. I've been all over the world. You have been all over as well. I honestly have to find any other society. I know there are many that are as good as we were in Africa, but those systems were sophisticated. They were the most efficient, the most cost-effective social security systems you can see anywhere, cannot be replaced by governments. Okay, no need for orphanages and old people's homes. The intergenerational mix in families and communities resulted practically into local universities capable of building credible citizens for the future who are able to deal with the realities of life. But today, the family systems are broken, the community systems are broken, all because of that colonial trauma, pushed by an irrelevant education, pushed by a highly contested and type of political system which is not suitable for Africa, pushed by a religiosity which has separated families and made it difficult for the family and community systems to function properly once again. So even today, we have NGOs and churches who discourage families looking after their own orphans. So because they make more money by going into the villages, picking up orphans and then putting them into orphanages. It's just not on. Number 4 is the identity crisis. So there is no greater tragedy in one's life than losing one's identity, losing one's sense of belonging. And for Africans, I know it's happening. Most of us are realizing our identity is the thing and we are coming back. We just have to accelerate the pace. If you lose identity, as we have been in the wilderness for the last, 6 to 10 decades, fighting for self-determination, it doesn't matter what you have. If you have a broken brand, like we have with Brand Afrika, millions of dollars won't repair that gap. Education, you could be the most educated, religion, politics, won't repair the gap. We have to regain that sense of identity back. But the danger has been, and thanks to a number of things, reawakening, the African consciousness coming back, and thanks to COVID, making it possible for those whose minds were completely closed to now start questioning everything from how to live healthy lives, what you eat. Can you imagine after decades and decades of being discouraged to eat African foods, use African herbs, or just live by basic values that have kept us close to the environment? Now, all of a sudden, Africans who were, and we were in the danger of losing our cultural identity, now it's coming back, so that we kind of cleanse ourselves from this drunkenness that we had gotten from doctrine-driven ideas, whether it's politics, religion, economics. So those are the facts I want to put on the table. And I look forward to then going into some analysis as soon as you're back from the break. Thank you. Welcome back to the analysis section. So I've tried to put together a kind of theory, a kind of Africa brand theory, and something that can be generally applicable. So starting with the question, what is the highest order causal problem that has led to the depreciation of Brand Afrika? And my answer is simple. It's colonial trauma in the form of residual fear of being African. In fact, that's why I wrote the little book, Being African. Once we overcome the fear of being ourselves, we are on our way. And I think it's already happening, big time. What are the symptoms of this colonial trauma? One, find there's no cultural content, no cultural foundation in any of the modernization strategies that I see on the continent. You look at a country's constitution, the highest law in the country, the cultural content is anecdotal and often cannot be translated to implementable investments on the ground. You look at national development strategies and plans, very limited cultural content. I mean, if you have a 5-year national development plan, in a lot of countries they have 20-year development plans, and there's no cultural foundation. It's a repetition of what you find in the textbooks written based on Western understanding of how society transforms. No wonder not much transformation takes place. So when you actually look at even businesses, which is a big part of the economy that we're focused on, huge companies, whether they are foreign companies coming to work in Africa or they are African companies, you will find that there is zero or very little content on African strategies or African values that go into generating these business strategies. I would say the abandonment of the historical foundations of society in Africa. The foundations are strong families and strong communities. As long as those two bricks are not back in order, it's difficult to see social and economic transformation at a high level in Africa. Why? Because there is no society that can achieve 10, 12, 14% economic growth rates like we saw with China, or 6, 8% as we're seeing with India. It does not happen just on economic capital alone. It is entirely dependent on social capital as well. So social capital and economic capital are two sides of the same coin. Strong social institutions ensure rapid economic growth. In Africa, we are quite happy to see the family institution go down the drain. I've been to universities, even chair a council of a university. I've gone through our most established universities. I have not seen any strong research on contemporary African families and why we are where we are and why that family is decaying. I have not seen strong research and development efforts for rebuilding strong families, rebuilding strong communities, because strong communities in the past ensured both social and economic progress. You did not need police to ensure that people don't chop down trees unnecessarily. You did not need police, to manage domestic violence, no environmental agencies. It was all local communities which ensured that you had a sustainable, effective development process on the ground. Now all that's gone, and somehow we think we will build strong economic activity at community level without rebuilding these institutions. So no wonder African confidence is damaged, because we're having majority of our citizens coming up from families and communities where confidence has been shaken deeply. There's no real systems anymore. They're neither African or European systems of local governance. They are not African or European systems of family and parenting. It's just whatever comes and goes. That erodes identity, that erodes confidence. And confidence, by the way, is practically 75% of what it takes to succeed in life at all levels, individual, family, community, national, continental. Confidence, not arrogance, because those are not the same thing. I mean, arrogance is actually a relative of ignorance. Confidence comes from people who deal with facts. They analyze, they get prepared, they plan. You build strong base that you go back to when things are not working well. Confidence comes from preparedness. So we need to dig deeper into rebuilding our family and community structures so that the foundation of society is strong. That's the problem. So let me now go to the solution. What is the basis of the solution? I call this the Sankofa cultural renaissance. Remember, I always talk about the Sankofa as looking back as far as we can so that we can fetch what we've forgotten. We can fetch all the good stuff that we need to bring forward. And the further back we look, then the further we can see in front. But somehow we think just looking back into our colonial history as our only history will get us in the mindset for being the largest economy in the world. No. The cultural renaissance starts with going back to understand how we Africans built the strongest societies in the past. How did we build the strongest family institutions I've seen anywhere in the world? Strongest community systems I've seen anywhere in the world. We have to go back there to figure out how we build such dynamism and how do we modernize that. So a lot of Africans think by going back to examine how society was constructed in the back, it's just history. It's not relevant to today. No, it's not replicating what our ancestors were doing 50, 100 years ago. It's fetching the principles, fetching the values, and figuring out how to continue to uphold them today in a modernizing society. That's the basis of the solution, and that's why I'm calling it a Sankofa cultural renaissance. So going more specifically then in what it means today, 2022 in this world, I have no hesitation to say that the world is a little bit tired of consuming Western products. And now we're seeing more Eastern products. And unfortunately, a lot of the Eastern products that we consume in Africa are not much different in cultural content to the Western ones. What the world is looking for is anticipating fresh products from Africa. I'm telling you, the world is tired of consuming the same stuff. Africa is the place where new ideas, new designs tend to come from. So although, like I say, China and India brands are coming strong, they are struggling. Although I would say the Indians are doing better. I think the Indians, although they are behind the Chinese in terms of economic growth rates, I think the Indians are probably doing a far better job of re-establishing brand India. The Indian culture is coming back stronger. I know over the last decade, most people thought Bollywood was Indian culture. I mean, to me, it's a kind of apartheid thing, or just white Indians, Western-looking stuff, I think there is going to be a greater cultural revolution coming through to the rest of the world from India. Then we're going to see even more brilliant products from India. I mean, we have spiritual leaders like Sadhguru who have managed to convincingly show the rest of the world that going back to the cultural roots of being Indian, the spiritual roots, is the most enriching. And I think we Africans have to strive to get to the same levels in the next decade or two. So the world knows by instinct. The world knows. In fact, one of the reasons why Africa is always an unknown quantity is because For Africans, it doesn't take much to do things that uplift the spirit. It's part of African humanity. So that ability to uplift the spirit of individuals, of people's communities, that now has to be found, to be immersed in, if we go, as we go global with our cuisine and food, it has to be quality. It has to uplift. Music is always, African music is always uplifted. Sport, dance, art, our architecture, our storytelling capacity. We now have to tell more African stories. Fashion, hospitality, the whole works. The African genius has always come through, but only at individual levels and in pockets. Now it has to be pervasive in the next few decades as Africa becomes the largest economy by middle of the century. Yeah, Westerners, they may not tell you, but they are tired of coming to Africa to stay in the same kind of hotel, Holiday Inn or whatever, same stuff they stay in when they're in the United States. They come, they eat the same food they eat when they're in Frankfurt. You know, they wear the same clothes they wear in London, you know, jacket and tie, and try and impress. I mean, wearing a tie and sweating in a continent where there's fresh air everywhere. This tiredness with Western products and imitation Eastern products is our space to create unique products, which are going to be the most high valued products in the next half of this century. So, as I conclude around this analysis, I'd like to emphasize that there's no culture, there's no ethnic group who are more legitimate than the other. There's no way of life that is more legitimate than the other. Each society has its strengths and weaknesses, and that's what the universe is about. There's nothing about the way the universe is created that says everything has to be the same, use the same system all over. Actually, each should contribute to the richness of global society. The more varied we are, the better. The important thing for Africa, therefore, is to borrow intelligently from other cultures. We are all human beings in the end. We are all related in the end. So absolutely no problem in Africans borrowing intelligently from others, But intelligently, please, not just copy and paste. That one word. We can never beat the Chinese at being Chinese. We can't beat the Americans at being Americans. Can you ever beat the Japanese at being Japanese? You cannot. We can't beat Indians at being Indians, but we can beat all of them any day at being African. If we modernize, get our products and services high quality, intrinsically African, no society can beat us as Africans at our best producing modern, high-quality African products. That's my last word on why being African is the basis for modernizing and not westernizing Africa as the key principle of Brand Afrika. Globalization should not mean westernization. Because globalization is actually turning out to be globalization of other cultures so that the indigenous cultures disappear. And as we know, the human race is in peril if we homogenize these cultures. And we have to preserve some level of diversity which ensures longevity. And that can only happen on the basis of three mutualities across the world. Mutual respect amongst all cultures, mutual benefit across all cultures, and then mutual responsibility and accountability for everything across all cultures, especially on things that cannot be replicable, that cannot be replaced. The environment, the atmosphere, and so on. That to me is the basis on which we should not shortchange ourselves. We should see ourselves as Africans. Africa brand playing a major role in global society at large. A society where I'm sure even the United Nations should adopt these African values of mutual respect, mutual benefit, and mutual responsibility and accountability. Thank you. See you shortly. In conclusion. So welcome back. So in conclusion, we have to rebuild Brand Afrika inch by inch as we move towards the largest economy in the world and being the largest ethnic group in the world. It's going to happen whether we like it or not. It's happening this century, by the middle of the century actually. But I must admit though, in conclusion, that our ancestors were smarter than us today. Because with very limited technology, they were able to craft incredibly powerful families, incredibly functional communities, very limited. In fact, there was, just like any other society, the appropriate levels of technology, but they did it. Why? Because it was about people. African brand or Brand Afrika, African culture, it's about focusing on people, not things. Western civilization brought us great things, lots of innovation, entrepreneurship, new products, but too much focus on things and not people. So African society, when I say our ancestors were smarter than us today, is because they could focus entirely on people. The family system was focused on people. Children were the center of the family, not adults. People just forget where we came from. It was an incredible system. So I'm not a believer in winching about history. I want to analyze history for Sankofa purposes. But history is not there to change or be emotionally charged about it. History is actually to be left as that. Somewhere we look back. We are here not to change history, but to make new history, strengthening this brand. So let's modernize Brand Afrika and let's not westernize Brand Afrika. We are all that we have, please. That's all. It's just us. Answers lie within us and within Africa. The truth that matters is that we discover for ourselves, not discovered by others and told to us. These are the highest values for creating peaceful, prosperous, a free society. So that as Africa becomes the largest economy, and as Africa becomes the largest ethnic group in the world, Africa's destiny should come through. There, not to divide the world, but to heal the world. Bring more peace and cross-cultural unity amongst the human race in the world. Making it possible now for people to see the real miracle. The real miracle is not in the church or in the schools or in the parliaments. The real miracle is life itself. Just the gift of life is what the miracle is we deal with as humans. That we are here for a certain period of time to explore, to discover, to create, and to enjoy. That has to come through Brand Afrika. That has to come through African products and services as they get global, uplift the entire spirit of the human race across the globe, rejuvenate this little planet of ours so that it's a healthier place to live in, and that it's a joy for future generations to take it over from us. Thank you so much for listening, and see you in the next session. Bye.